We know that the authors of the United States Constitution were by and large a socially conservative, well-to-do group including lawyers, merchants, shippers, land speculators, planters, and slaveholders. There were no women, African Americans, or Native Americans at the Constitutional Convention. Not a single one of the 55 delegates even represented the poorer white debtor group in American society. 40 of the delegates owned depreciated articles of Confederation-issued securities and stood to gain financially if the principal and interest were repaid at face value. When the Founding Fathers met in secret in Philadelphia during the summer of 1787, were they acting as defenders of hard-won liberty or as self-serving aristocrats interested in preserving their own economic and political positions? Were they meeting as supporters of a social and democratic revolution in American society? Or were they its opponents, frightened by its implications and hoping to stop it in its tracks? James Madison, in his famous essay known as Federalist No. 10, defended the Constitution by noting its ability to prevent either minority or majority factions from seizing the reins of power. Yet in every respect, the group that gathered to write the Constitution represented a minority faction of the rich and powerful. Could they write a constitution with rules fair to all groups and individuals in the new country? It would be unfair to smear the reputations of these men, brandishing them as traitors of the American Revolution, simply because they were rich, articulate, literate, and powerful. We need proof that their actions were designed to promote their own interests. Therefore, we declared this class a court of inquiry and empower it to investigate the motives of the Founding Fathers when they wrote and ratified the United States Constitution. George Washington, President of the Constitutional Convention, James Madison, its Secretary, and Alexander Hamilton, one of the Convention's most influential members, are suspected of treason for violating the philosophical principles and formula for government described in the Declaration of Independence, which states, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed." Because of his familiarity with these principles, and because he did not participate in the Constitutional Convention, Thomas Jefferson, the author of the Declaration of Independence, will conduct the investigation. Jefferson will question witnesses who will offer into evidence the actual statements that they made at the time the Constitution was written and ratified. Fellow students, in order to ensure that a fair conclusion is reached, at the end of the investigation you will decide whether the Founding Fathers are innocent or guilty of treason.
For our first witness, I call Alexander Hamilton. Mr. Hamilton, please take the stand. Stop it. Mr. Hamilton, you were one of the leading participants at the Constitutional Convention of 1787, an active advocate of a strong central government under the leadership of a powerful chief executive appointed for life. As an advocate for the Constitution after it was written, you helped write the Federalist Papers under the name Publius. Mr. Hamilton, why did you endorse this Constitution?
We may be said to have reached the last stage of national humiliation. There is scarcely anything that can wound the pride or degrade the character of an independent nation which we do not experience. Do we owe debts to foreigners and to our own citizens? These remain without any proper or satisfactory provision for their discharge. Have we valuable territories and important posts in the possession of a foreign power which, by express stipulations, ought long since to have been surrendered? These are still retained. Are we in a condition to repel the aggression? We have neither troops, nor treasury, nor government. Are we entitled by nature and compact to a free participation in the navigation of the Mississippi? Spain excludes it from us. Is commerce of importance to national wealth? Ours is at the lowest point. Is respectability in the eyes of foreign powers a safeguard against foreign encroachments? The imbecility of our government even forbids them to treat with us. Our ambassadors abroad are the mere pageants of mimic sovereignty.
Mr. Hamilton, you were born the illegitimate son of an unemployed beachcomber in the British West Indies. How did you rise so rapidly to a position of power in this country? Did you use your influence as General Washington's aide-de-camp during the Revolutionary War? Or perhaps you made use of the prominence of your father-in-law, the influential and wealthy Philip Schuyler of New York. You practiced law through the war. Did this help you enrich yourself as a land speculator? Did a new, stronger national government threaten your economic position, or did it enhance it? Mr. Hamilton, as the Secretary of the Treasury, you developed a plan to pay off the national debts at face value, despite the fact that many of the securities were helped by speculators who had purchased them from impoverished farmers at a fraction of their initial value. While there is no evidence that you personally profited, do you expect us to believe that your friends, relations, and partners did not profit from investments in the securities? One last question, Mr. Hamilton. What is your view of the Declaration of Independence's claim that all men are created equal? Good luck remembering all these questions.
Thanks for letting me answer any of them. Inequality would exist as long as liberty existed. It would unavoidably result from that very liberty itself. Inequality of property constituted the great and fundamental distinction in society. All communities divide themselves into the few and the many. The few and the many. The first are the rich and the well-born, the other the mass of the people. The people are turbulent and changing. They seldom judge or determine right.
Thank you, Mr. Hamilton. You may return to your seat. Fellow citizens, I hope you enjoyed this talk with the revolutionary leader. Or would I be more correct to say, this traitor to democracy? Sent to For our next witness, I call that noted slaveholder, planter, land speculator, creditor, soldier, president of the Constitutional Convention, and first president of the United States of America, the father of our country, George Washington. Mr. Washington, please take the stand.